Let's draw a track plan today. We'll do the research, sketch it up, and take it for a test spin on this episode of the Marshline Minute. Hello model railroaders, I'm Andy Dorsch and welcome to my Model Works, your DIY guide to model railroading. Be sure to subscribe to my channel and click that little bell icon for notifications so you don't miss any of my future videos. Putting together a track plan for your model railroad can be the most fun part of model railroading. It's the point where you get to take all of your thoughts and dreams and put them down onto paper and start creating that reality or that vision of what you want your model railroad to be. So today we're going to be putting together a track plan, a hand-drawn track plan for my Marshline subdivision model railroad. I'm going to show you 4 resources that I use for planning purposes when it comes to track planning, and then I'm going to show you how I would hand draw a track plan. Resource number 1, Google Maps or Google Earth. Google Maps may be one of the best model railroad planning tools out there. For one, it's free, it's simple to use, and you can get a bird's eye view of how the real world looks. It's great for following track arrangements and seeing structures along the rails and getting an idea of the landscape as well. I personally love using Google Maps to look around and just follow the rails. Resource number 2, Fond du Lac County GIS. The local government in the county that I live in has a GIS mapping resource for where I live. GIS stands for Geographic Information Systems, and the data that they include ranges from aerial photos to property tax information and everything in between. If you're from the United States, you may want to check within your state or local government to see if you have a GIS resource available. Your Railroad's Historical Society. The maps and track charts for the C&W I got from the Chicago Northwestern Historical Society. These pictures and track arrangements accurately show the towns that I intend to model and offer up crucial data that documented the changes in the track over time. Number 4, social media. Social media sites like Facebook, Flickr, and Instagram are a boon for model railroad planning information. Most of the information that you'll find on these sites comes in the way of pictures, but it can also come in the way of making connections with people that have knowledge of the railroad you're trying to model. Oftentimes, people that I connect with on social media regarding the Marshline give me first-hand accounts that fill in the gaps and add to the fidelity of the recreation of the old Marshline. So pitter-patter, let's get at her and draw a track plan. So the first thing that I like to do is, just like a good old draftsman, put a title and a scale on the drawing I'm creating, and of course a border. And then I go ahead and mark out some reference points of the width of the benchwork that I intend on having on the layout. So I'm going to start here by drawing a track chart using the main line, as you can see on the picture that just flashed up. I'll start adding sidings here. This will be for Green Giant. So I'm using AFE from the Historical Society to get the right track arrangement. Go ahead and add a little spur here, goes inside the building, and then we'll add the rest of the siding here for Green Giant. You can see it's quite an operation they have here. So we'll get that final spur in there. And then once I have it completed, I like to throw a little label on it just so that we know what part of the model railroad we are working on. So next I want to tackle the crossing with the Milwaukee Road. It's pretty simple on the track chart here. Just make a perpendicular line to the main line to indicate that there's a crossing. Now we'll go back in and fill in the spur for the feed mill and co-op. And then we'll add the interchange track here off the bottom. Lastly, for ripping, we're going to be adding Fullerton lumber. This is a little bit more of a complex pattern. As you can see here, the orange line is the main line, and then the spurs go off in every which way. That's depicted here on the track chart. We'll give it a label. We'll throw in the St. Marie sand pit for good measure, and now we'll start drawing out our bench work. So since we have those things pre-marked, it's pretty easy work to go ahead and basically connect the dots to get our our bench work in place. And then now as we start to draw the track plan, the first part I like to put in are the radii. So I take my compass here and I set it to the scale. Here we're using 30 inches for the radii. And those are set based on the little pieces of little squares in the graph paper. So once we get all of the radii put in, I'll come back in with the straight edge and we'll add the connecting pieces for the main line. So I'll go through, and anywhere there's a gap in the track, we'll just close it up there using our straight edge, and we'll just work around the layout until we have the full main line connected. So here you can see the finished product, and now we're going to start thinking about where we want to put in the sidings and spurs based on our track chart down below. So we'll go ahead and start with Green Giant, and here I'm adding the spur that's going to go inside the canning factory for loading boxcars. I'll scribble that down so that there's at least a couple cars in there. And then we'll go ahead and freehand in the sidings based on the track chart down below. Now I want to extend the siding through the curve just to give me enough space to move trains in and do a runaround, almost like a small little yard, to get the rest of my operation set up. I'll bring in the straight edge here when I mean business, so I can get those lines nice and straight. And then we'll get the compass back in here and essentially connect the rest of the siding pieces. Here we're going to throw in the complex part, or Fullerton lumber. And we're going to bend it around the curve in the peninsula. So there we're putting in the maintenance away spur. Just kind of connecting that to the main line, and then we'll draw in the final spur for Fullerton lumber. Get the radii set, get my hand out of the way. I'll go ahead and then freehand the rest in. And we'll just fix any mistakes I have along the way. This is not a one and done, it's an iterative process, and there we go. Starting to look like some sort of a track plan here. All right, we'll toss in the spur for Green Lake, and then we'll be all set. There we go, sand pits in there too. So all good track plans need some buildings and some color, and this one's no different. So I got out the colored pencils here, and we're gonna go ahead and shade in the buildings and also put in some of the terrain so you can kind of get an idea as to what we're gonna be looking at here on the model railroad.
So there we go. We've got a working track plan and model railroad planning resources for future track planning endeavors. Next time on the Marshline Minute, we're going to be talking about the bench work. how I put it together, the tools I used, and you don't want to miss where I break down the cost. Put all this together in an 11 by 16 space. Don't forget to subscribe to my channel, or better yet, check out one of these videos on the marsh line or one of my DIY videos. Thanks for watching, and as always, keep her in notch 8.